Earth warned the cosmos Part 1, The Warning. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed inside on humid days. Thousands of seats rose in circles around the central platform, filled with representatives from 200 species. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had no bodies at all, just floating lights that spoke through machines. Ambassador stood alone on the platform. He was a short man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served Earth for 20 years in this place, 20 years of being ignored, 20 years of polite smiles hiding open contempt. Today would be different. The council speaker, a tall creature with 4 arms and blue skin, looked down at him with something close to pity. Ambassador, you have requested emergency time to address the council. You have 5 minutes. Bowed his head slightly. I will need less than that. A few representatives laughed. The sound echoed in the massive hall. Humans were always good for entertainment. They took themselves so seriously for such a young and weak species. 3 days ago, began, his voice calm and clear, the Hegemony Empire announced its intention to absorb the Sol system. Our home. They call it a buffer zone. They say it is necessary for their security. He paused. They did not ask our permission. More laughter. The Hegemony representative, a massive creature covered in bone-white armor, made a sound like grinding rocks. Permission. Little human, we do not ask permission from insects before we step on them. Ignored him. For 300 years, humanity has been a member of this accord. We followed your rules. We limited our military. We kept our fleet small and weak, just as you demanded. We did this because we believed in peace. We believed that if we showed good faith, you would protect us when we needed protection. The hall grew quieter. Something in his voice had changed. It was harder now, colder. We were wrong. He touched a small device on his wrist. Above him, a holographic display came to life. It showed the Sol system, Earth, Mars, the gas giants, the asteroid belt. Then it showed something else. Red dots, thousands of them, then tens of thousands. They appeared around every planet, inside every moon, hidden in every shadow of the system. What is this? The council speaker asked, leaning forward. This is the truth, said. For 300 years we did what you asked. We kept our public fleet small, but we are not stupid. We watched the Hegemony conquer system after system. We watched this council do nothing. We asked for help. You gave us none, so we prepared. The Hegemony representative stood up. Lies, tricks, no minor race could hide such. 15,000 warships, continued, his voice rising. 2,000 weapons platforms. 50 shipyards hidden in dimensional folds. 300 research stations developing technologies you cannot imagine. He looked directly at the Hegemony representative. We call it the Veil Protocol. We have been building it since the day we joined this council. Silence fell over the hall, complete silence. Far away, in a hidden command center deep inside the Moon Titan, Admiral watched the broadcast. She was 58 years old, with short white hair and eyes that had seen too much. Around her, hundreds of officers worked at their stations, monitoring systems that the galaxy did not know existed. He is doing well, said Captain, standing beside her. The young woman was barely 30, but she was already one of the fleet's best tactical minds. He is doing what must be done, replied. There is no joy in this. On the screen was still speaking. This message is not a threat, it is a courtesy. We are giving you one chance to do what you should have done decades ago. Stand with us. Tell the Hegemony that humanity is not alone. The council speaker made a dismissive gesture. Ambassador, even if these numbers are real, you cannot expect us to believe. I expect nothing from you, interrupted. I stopped expecting anything from this council years ago. I am not here to ask for your help anymore. He looked around the hall, meeting as many eyes as he could. I am here to tell you what happens next. He touched his device again. The hologram changed. It now showed a message written in every major language of the galaxy. Simple words, direct words. We were holding back. Now we are done. The hegemony has until tomorrow to withdraw their conquest fleet from our borders, said. If they do not, we will destroy it, all of it, and then we will come for them. The hegemony representative laughed again, but there was less confidence in it now. You would not dare. Your tiny fleet against our thousands. You will be crushed in hours. Smiled, it was not a warm smile. You have not been listening. Our tiny fleet was a mask. Behind that mask is something you are not prepared for. He began walking toward the exit. Tomorrow, the galaxy will see what humanity really is. I suggest you watch carefully. You may need to know when we come for your worlds next. He left the hall in silence. No one tried to stop him. That night, Admiral addressed her commanders through secure channels. 15,000 captains, spread across the solar system, hidden in places the enemy could not imagine. Tomorrow we show them who we are, she said. For 3 centuries we have played the role of the weak, the harmless, the species not worth noticing. That role ends at dawn. Captain looked at the tactical display. The hegemony fleet was already moving toward Sol. 1,200 warships, bristling with weapons, confident in their victory. They still think we are lying, she said. Let them think that, replied. Let them think that until the moment they die. She closed her eyes for a moment, remembering Earth, blue oceans, green forests, 8 billion people who had no idea how close they had come to slavery, how close they still were. We did not want this war, she said quietly, but we will finish it. Across the solar system, human crews ran final checks on weapons that had never been fired. Engineers powered up engines that had waited decades for this moment. Soldiers wrote messages to families they might never see again. And in the darkness between worlds, the veil began to lift. Earth warned the Cosmos Part 2, First Blood. The hegemony's 4th conquest fleet entered the Sol system like a storm rolling across an open plain. 1,200 warships in perfect formation, their hulls painted with the marks of 100 conquered worlds. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tiny blue planet grow larger in the display. Scan for enemy vessels, he ordered. His sensor officer worked for a moment, then reported with amusement in his voice. I am reading 43 human ships, Commander, 43. He made a sound like laughter. They are forming a defensive line near the 4th planet. Smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. 43 ships to stop 1,200. The humans are either very brave or very stupid. Probably both, Commander. On the bridge of the HSS Defiance, Lieutenant monitored communications from her station. Her hands were steady, but her heart was racing. She was 27 years old. She had never been in real combat. None of them had. Humanity had not fought a space battle in over 200 years. Today that would change. Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. Her expression was calm, almost peaceful. All ships, this is Admiral. The enemy fleet is now within range. Begin final preparations. Glanced at the tactical display. 43 human ships, arranged in a thin line that looked pathetically small against the approaching wall of enemy vessels. Behind them, the solar system appeared empty, just planets, moons, and asteroids. She knew better. The hegemony fleet slowed as it approached. Commander was cautious enough to send a message before attacking. His image appeared on every human screen, a massive creature with bone-white armor and cold, black eyes. Humans of Sol, he said, his voice filled with contempt. You have been warned. Surrender your system and we will be merciful. Your people will serve the hegemony as workers and servants. Resist and we will burn your worlds to ash. Admiral responded personally. Commander, you were given a chance to withdraw. You did not take it. This is your final warning. Turn your fleet around and leave. If you continue forward, none of you will survive. Laughed, the sound was ugly like bones breaking. 43 ships threaten 1,200. Human arrogance is truly amazing. I almost admire it. He cut the transmission. The fleet continued forward. Admiral closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her voice was steady. All stations, execute Veil Protocol. Pressed a sequence of buttons. Across the solar system, 15,000 captains did the same. The hegemony sensor officer was the first to see it. His amusement disappeared, replaced by confusion, then fear. "Commander, I am reading new contacts." "How many?" The officer did not answer immediately. He checked his instruments again and again. His hands began to shake. "How many?" demanded. 15,000, Commander. 15,000 warships across the system. Turned to the main display. His black eyes went wide. They came from everywhere. From the shadows of Jupiter's moons. From inside Saturn's rings. From asteroid fields that had seemed empty for centuries. Human warships, massive and bristling with weapons, appearing like ghosts from the darkness. And they were not alone. Weapons platforms emerged from the clouds of Jupiter itself, their guns already tracking targets. Defense satellites woke from sleep around every planet, their systems coming online in cascading waves of activation. Mining stations transformed, their industrial equipment folding away to reveal hidden missile batteries. The 43 ships of the human defensive line began to move, not retreating, advancing. They were joined by hundreds more, then thousands more, pouring out of hiding places the hegemony had never thought to scan. "Impossible," whispered. "This is impossible." Admiral's voice filled his bridge. "Commander, you were warned. Your answer was laughter. Remember that in the time you have left." The battle began. Lieutenant would remember the next 11 minutes for the rest of her life. She would remember the sound of alarms, the flash of weapons fire, the screams on enemy channels as ship after ship was destroyed. She would remember the precision of human tactics, how their fleet moved like a single organism, surrounding the enemy, cutting off escape routes, destroying them piece by piece. The hegemony fought back. They were not cowards. Their weapons found targets. 340 human ships died in those 11 minutes, their crews burning in the cold of space. But for every human ship that fell, 10 hegemony vessels were destroyed. Commander tried to rally his forces. He tried to organize a retreat, but there was nowhere to go. Human ships were everywhere, behind them, beside them, above and below. His fleet was surrounded by a wall of fire that grew smaller every second. His last transmission was caught by human recorders. "This was not supposed to happen. We were told they were weak. We were told." The transmission ended. When the firing stopped, Lieutenant looked at her display. The hegemony's fourth conquest fleet no longer existed. 1,200 warships had been reduced to floating wreckage in less than a quarter of an hour. Admiral's voice broke the silence. "All ships, report status. Search for survivors. Any enemy crew that surrenders will be treated according to the laws of war." Realized she was crying. She was not sure if it was relief, grief, or something else entirely. On the bridge of the command ship, Captain approached Admiral. "Admiral, we have confirmed total enemy destruction. No hegemony vessel escaped." Nodded slowly. "The galaxy needs to see this." "See what, Admiral?" "Everything, the battle, our ships. What happens when you threaten humanity?" She looked at the main display, where the wreckage of the enemy fleet drifted in silence. "Lieutenant, prepare a broadcast. Full video of the engagement, unedited. Send it to every system in the galaxy." Wiped her eyes and began working. Within hours, every species in known space would see the footage. They would see the wall of human ships appearing from nothing. They would see the hegemony fleet dissolving like snow in sunlight. They would see Admiral's final message, recorded as her fleet turned toward hegemony space. "You wanted our system, come and take it." The broadcast ended with an image that would be burned into galactic memory. 15,000 human warships, their engines blazing, moving in perfect formation toward the stars, moving toward war. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, representatives watched in silence. The hegemony seats were empty. Their ambassador had fled within minutes of the broadcast starting. Ambassador sat alone in the human section, watching the reactions around him. Fear, shock, disbelief, and in some eyes, mostly the eyes of species the hegemony had conquered or threatened, something that might have been hope. A small representative from a species did not recognize approached him carefully. Ambassador, is this real? Can your people really do this? Smiled, and for the first time in 20 years, it was a genuine smile. We tried to tell you, for 3 centuries we tried to tell you, humanity does not start fights. He looked at the display where the human fleet was still visible, still advancing. But we finish them. Earth warned the cosmos, Part 3. The galaxy reacts. The destruction of the hegemony's 4th conquest fleet sent waves of panic through the galaxy. In 300 years, no one had defeated a hegemony invasion force. In 11 minutes, humanity had destroyed one completely. Counselor had been a junior diplomat 3 weeks ago. Now, at 39 years old, she was Earth's senior representative to the Galactic Council. Ambassador had retired, saying his work was done. The easy part, warning the galaxy, was over. The hard part was just beginning. Every day ships arrived at Earth's borders. Diplomatic vessels from dozens of species, all carrying the same desperate messages. We want to talk. We want peace. Please do not destroy us. Met with them all. She listened to their fears. She answered their questions calmly, but she could not make promises. The war had started, and it would not end until the hegemony was finished. Doctor worked in a small office aboard the diplomatic station. She was a scientist who studied how different species thought and felt. For weeks, she had been watching the galaxy's reaction to humanity's revelation. They are terrified, she told Counselor during one of their meetings. Not just of our military power. They are terrified because they misjudged us so badly. For 3 centuries, they thought they understood humans. Now they realize they understood nothing. Nodded slowly, and the hegemony. His expression darkened. The hegemony is not terrified, they are angry. They see our victory as an insult. They will retaliate badly. She was right. 442b was a small colony world on the edge of human space. 2 million people lived there, farmers, scientists, families who had come to build a new life among the stars. They had no military value. They were not a threat to anyone. The hegemony destroyed them anyway. The attack came without warning. A hegemony strike fleet appeared in the system, bypassed the colony's tiny defense force, and began bombing civilian centers. They did not demand surrender. They did not take prisoners. They simply killed for 6 hours until there was nothing left to kill. When human rescue ships finally arrived, they found a dead world. Cities reduced to glass. Forests burned to ash. 2 million people, men, women, children, murdered for no reason except revenge. Counselor was in a meeting when the news arrived. She excused herself, walked to a private room, and sat in silence for a long time. She had known some of the colonists. She had visited 442b once years ago for a farming conference. She remembered green fields, children playing, people laughing. All gone now. Admiral received the news on her command ship. She read the casualty report 3 times, her face showing no emotion. Then she called Commander to her private quarters. Was 48 years old, a career military officer who had spent his life training for battles that never came. Now the battles were here, and he was not sure he was ready for them. The hegemony wants us to be angry, told him. They want us to make mistakes. They think if they kill enough civilians, we will either surrender or become monsters. She met his eyes. We will do neither. What are your orders, Admiral? Find the fleet that attacked 442B. Find every ship, every commander, every officer involved in the massacre." Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard as stone. "And then remove them from existence." Nodded, and after that? After that, we continue, system by system. We dismantle their ability to ever do this again. She paused. But we do it correctly. We do not bomb civilians. We do not torture prisoners. We do not become them. Fleet found the hegemony strike force 3 days later. They had retreated to a heavily defended sector, expecting pursuit. They got more than they expected. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, every enemy ship had been destroyed or captured, but did not stop there. His fleet moved deeper into hegemony territory, targeting military bases, shipyards, and weapons factories. Not cities, not farms, not hospitals, only military targets. The galaxy watched. They watched human ships bypass civilian populations that had no defenses. They watched human soldiers capture enemy personnel and treat them according to the rules of war. They watched something they had never seen before, a species powerful enough to destroy anything, choosing not to. Doctor was asked to address the Galactic Council. She stood on the same platform where Ambassador had delivered humanity's warning, and she tried to explain what she had learned. "You are afraid of us," she said. "I understand. We have shown you power beyond anything you expected, but you misunderstand what drives us." She looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of species that had dismissed humanity for centuries. "We do not conquer for territory. We do not fight for resources. We do not seek to rule the galaxy," she paused, "but threaten our families, kill our children. We will burn your civilization to bedrock and salt the ashes, not because we enjoy destruction, because we cannot allow such evil to continue existing." A representative stood up, a small creature from a species the hegemony had oppressed for generations. "Then you will destroy them completely." The hegemony shook her head. "We will destroy their ability to hurt anyone ever again. Their military, their weapons, their empire, yes, all of that will end. But their people," she smiled slightly, "their people are not our enemies. Fear and greed made their leaders into monsters. We will remove the monsters. What their people become after that is up to them." Counselor spoke next. Her voice was tired but steady. "We did not want this war. We begged this council to help prevent it. You gave us nothing but contempt." She looked at the empty hegemony seats. "Remember that when you judge what comes next. Remember that we asked for peace first." Far away, Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching another hegemony military station burn. His crew was silent. Victory did not feel like celebration. It felt like duty, hard, necessary, and endless. A young officer approached him. "Commander, we have detected a civilian transport in the debris field. Hegemony species, mostly families. They are requesting help." Did not hesitate. "Send rescue teams, medical supplies, food, and water." He saw the surprise on some faces. "They are not soldiers. They are families running from a war zone. We help them." Hours later, he watched the refugees being brought aboard human ships. Children who had been taught to fear humans looked around with wide eyes, confused by the gentle hands offering them food, the soft voices asking if they were hurt. One small child approached directly. She could not have been more than 5 years old if her species aged the way humans did. She looked up at him with an expression he could not quite read. "Are you going to kill us?" she asked. Knelt down to her level. "No, little one, we are going to take you somewhere safe." "But we are the enemy." "You are a child," he said softly. "Children are never the enemy." The galaxy watched that too. They watched human soldiers carrying enemy children to safety. They watched medics treating wounded prisoners with the same care they gave their own people. They watched, and slowly, they began to understand. Humanity was not here to conquer. Humanity was here to end a nightmare, and they would do it without becoming nightmares themselves. Earth Warned the Cosmos Part 4, The Long March. 2 years into the war, the galaxy had changed in ways no one had predicted. The hegemony empire, which had stood for 10,000 years, was crumbling. Human fleets moved through their territory like fire through dry grass, dismantling military bases, freeing conquered worlds, and pushing ever deeper toward the enemy's home systems. But war is never clean. War is never easy, and the cost of victory was measured in blood. Sergeant Minu had been a university student 3 years ago. He had studied history, planning to become a teacher. Now he was 24 years old, carrying a rifle through the ruins of an alien city, watching his friends die one by one. The hegemony had changed tactics. They could not defeat human fleets in open battle, so they hid among civilians. They placed weapons in hospitals. They used children as shields. They fought dirty, desperate, and without honor. Every day, Minu faced impossible choices. Do you fire on the building where enemy soldiers are hiding, knowing there are innocent families inside? Do you advance into a trap, knowing your squad might not survive? Do you keep fighting when every victory feels like another piece of your soul being torn away? Admiral understood what her soldiers were going through. She had given orders that killed thousands of human troops. She had watched young people like Minu grow old in months, their eyes filled with the weight of things they had seen. She called a meeting of all senior commanders. Her face appeared on screens across the fleet, older now, more tired but still unbroken. "I know what this war is doing to us," she said. "I know the temptation to end it quickly, to use maximum force, to stop caring about enemy civilians because caring costs human lives." She paused. "I am asking you to resist that temptation." Commander spoke up. "Admiral, with respect, our soldiers are dying because we limit ourselves. If we fought the way the hegemony fights, If we fought the way the hegemony fights, we would become the hegemony," interrupted. "We would win the war and lose everything that makes us worth saving." She looked directly at him. "The day we stop being human is the day we have already lost." She established what became known as the protocols. Strict rules for every soldier, every ship, every battle. Protect civilians, even enemy civilians. Accept surrenders, even from those who had committed terrible acts. Build hospitals in every city they captured. Feed the hungry, heal the wounded, shelter the homeless. It was harder. It was slower. It cost lives that could have been saved with less mercy. But it was human. Sergeant Minu's unit was assigned to liberate a world called Seven. Intelligence said it was a minor military outpost. Intelligence was wrong. When they landed, they found a slave camp. Tens of thousands of prisoners from dozens of different species, held in conditions that made Minu's stomach turn. Some had been there for centuries. Some had been born in captivity, never knowing any other life. The guards fled when human forces arrived. The slaves did not know what to do. They had been told humans were monsters, worse than the hegemony. They expected death. Instead, Minu's unit brought food, water, medical supplies. They opened the gates and told the prisoners they were free. An old creature approached Minu. He was small, frail, covered in scars from decades of abuse. He looked at the human soldier with eyes that had forgotten how to hope. "Why," he asked, "why are you helping us? We are nothing to you." Minu knelt down, trying to meet his eyes. "You are people, that is enough." The old creature started crying. Minu realized he had probably not been treated as a person in a very long time. Across the galaxy, Navigator was fighting a different kind of battle. She was 31 years old, a civilian pilot who had volunteered to help transport refugees out of war zones. Her ship was small, unarmed, and filled with families fleeing the destruction. 3 days ago, she had picked up a convoy of transports carrying 40,000 children. They were from a species that had been enslaved by the hegemony for generations. Their parents were dead. Their homes were ashes. All they had left was each other, and the human ships trying to get them to safety. The hegemony found them. A strike force appeared from nowhere, 5 warships against 4 unarmed transports and tiny escort vessel. There was no way to win. There was no way to escape. The enemy ships moved to surround them, weapons charging. Looked at her crew. They were all volunteers, all civilians, all terrified. She thought about her daughter back on Earth, 7 years old, who had cried when left for the war. "Get the transports behind us," she said quietly. "Captain, we cannot fight them. We do not have weapons." "We do not need weapons." She began entering commands into the navigation system. "We have an engine." Her crew understood. Some of them cried, none of them argued. Recorded a final message. Her voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking. "To my daughter, I am sorry I will not come home, but I promised those children I would keep them safe. I am going to keep that promise." The Hegemony flagship was the largest vessel in the strike force, aimed directly at its engine core. At maximum acceleration, her tiny ship became a weapon more powerful than any missile. The impact destroyed both vessels instantly. The explosion damaged 2 more enemy ships badly enough that they could not pursue. The remaining Hegemony vessels retreated, leaving the transports to escape. 40,000 children survived because one human woman refused to let them die. The news of sacrifice spread across the galaxy, not through military channels, but through the voices of the children she saved. They told anyone who would listen about the human pilot who gave her life for people she had never met. Admiral held a memorial service. Thousands of soldiers attended, standing in silence as name was added to the Wall of Heroes, a monument that had grown far too long in 2 years of war. She was not a soldier, said. She was a mother, a pilot, a volunteer. She had every right to save herself. No one would have blamed her. She paused. She chose differently. That choice, that willingness to sacrifice everything for strangers, is what makes us human. Far away, on a transport ship filled with refugee children, a small girl held a picture of. She did not understand death yet. She only knew that a kind woman with a soft voice had promised to keep her safe, and had kept that promise. She would never forget that face. None of them would. The war continued. Human forces pushed deeper into Hegemony territory. The enemy grew more desperate, their atrocities more terrible, their resistance more fierce. But something had changed in the galaxy. Species that had been neutral began sending supplies. Conquered peoples rose up against their masters. Former enemies offered information, assistance, alliance. They had watched humanity bleed and sacrifice and refused to become monsters. They had seen Navigator die for children who were not her own. They had seen Sergeant Minu weep for slaves he had never known. And slowly, carefully, they began to believe. Not in human power, that was obvious to everyone now. They began to believe in human character, in the idea that strength and kindness could exist together, in the hope that the galaxy might become something better than it had ever been. The long march continued, but humanity did not march alone anymore. Earth warned the Cosmos Part 5, The New Dawn. The Hegemony surrendered on a cold morning in the year 2852. Their final leaders, those who had not fled or died, stood in the great hall of their own capital and spoke the words that ended 10,000 years of empire. "We yield, completely and without conditions." Admiral accepted the surrender personally. She stood in her formal uniform, surrounded by officers who had fought beside her for 5 years. Her hair was completely white now. Her face was lined with exhaustion, but her eyes were the same, calm, steady, and hard as iron. "The Hegemony Empire is dissolved," she announced. "Its military is disbanded, its conquered peoples are free." She looked at the defeated leaders. "You will be held accountable for your crimes, not through vengeance but through justice, fair trials, evidence, the rule of law." One of the Hegemony leaders, an old general who had ordered the massacre at 442B, snarled at her. "You think this changes anything? You think you can hold the galaxy together? You are one species, one small species. Without us, everything will fall apart. Smiled slightly, we will see. The months that followed were harder than the war itself. Building is always harder than destroying. Humanity faced a choice that would shape the galaxy for generations. They could rule, they had the power, every species knew it. Human fleets controlled every major system. Human technology was decades ahead of anyone else. If they wanted an empire, no one could stop them. President, she had been elected to lead Earth's civilian government after retiring from the military, addressed the reformed Galactic Council. Thousands of representatives listened, many of them still uncertain, still afraid. 5 years ago, we warned you, she began. We told you we had been holding back. We showed you power you did not believe existed. Some of you thought we would use that power to conquer, to dominate, to become the new hegemony. She paused, looking around the hall. The hegemony seats were occupied now, not by their old leaders, but by elected representatives of the species that had once ruled through fear. We could have done that. We could be your masters today. But power without purpose is just tyranny with better weapons, and we did not fight this war to become tyrants. She outlined Earth's proposal, the new accord, a genuine alliance not based on fear but on mutual benefit. Every member species would contribute to collective defense. Every member species would have equal voice. No one would be forced to join. No one would stand alone. The old accord failed because it was built on lies, said. Strong species pretended to care about weak ones while doing nothing to protect them. We are proposing something different, something real. The most controversial part of the proposal came next. The former hegemony species, the conquerors, the slavers, the killers, would be invited to join. The hall erupted in protest. Representatives from species that had suffered under hegemony rule shouted their anger. How could humans forgive so easily? How could they offer alliance to monsters? President waited for the noise to die down. When she spoke again, her voice was gentle but firm. I understand your anger, I share it. 2 million of my people died on 442B. I attended the funerals of soldiers who should have lived to see there. She closed her eyes for a moment. But I also met the children of hegemony citizens, children who were taught to hate us, who were told we were monsters. Those children watched our soldiers feed them, heal them, protect them. They learned that everything they had been taught was wrong. She opened her eyes. Vengeance creates enemies. Justice creates allies. The hegemony leaders who committed crimes will face trials. They will be punished according to law. But they're ordinary people, farmers, teachers, parents. They are not our enemies. They never were. They were victims of their own leaders, just as much as the species those leaders conquered. The vote took 3 days. Species argued, negotiated, threatened to walk out. But in the end, the new accord passed. Not unanimously. Nothing involving 200 species is ever unanimous, but with a clear majority. Former enemies became partners. Former slaves sat beside their former masters, working together to build something new. Ambassador watched the vote from his home on Earth. He was 50 now, retired from politics, writing his memoirs. His daughter sat beside him, watching the celebrations on the news. Did you know it would end like this? She asked. When you gave that first warning, did you know? Thought about it for a long time. I hoped, he said finally, I hoped that if we showed the galaxy who we really are, they might want to be better too. He smiled. I was not sure it would work, but I hoped. Admiral, she had been captain when the war began, and had risen through the ranks through 5 years of combat, commanded humanity's first true peacekeeping fleet. Her ships patrolled the borders of known space, not as conquerors but as protectors. 3 months after the new accord was signed, her sensors detected something unexpected. A ship, small, primitive, moving hesitantly through a region of space no one had explored. First contact. His heart beat faster as she studied the vessel. A new species, taking their first steps into the galaxy. They had probably heard stories about what waited for them out here, stories about the hegemony, about conquest and slavery, stories about humans, powerful and terrifying. She wondered what they expected to find. "Open a channel," she ordered. "All languages, all frequencies. Let them know we see them." The alien ship stopped moving. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, it turned toward the human fleet. A message came through, broken, uncertain, translated clumsily by their primitive computers. "We come in peace, please. Do not harm us." Smiled. She thought about everyone who had brought them to this moment. Admiral, who had held the line when the galaxy laughed. Ambassador, who had delivered a warning no one believed. Navigator, who had died to save children she never knew. Sergeant Menu, who had wept for strangers in a slave camp. Thousands of soldiers, volunteers, and ordinary people who had sacrificed everything for a future they might not live to see. They had fought so that this moment could exist, so that new species entering the galaxy would find hope instead of fear. "Welcome to the galaxy," said, her voice warm and steady. "You have nothing to fear from us. We are here to help." She paused, remembering the words that had started everything. "And if anyone ever threatens you, anyone at all, you have everything to hope for. You will never stand alone." The alien ship moved closer. Its crew was probably terrified, probably uncertain, probably wondering if they could trust these strange beings who claimed to be friendly. They would learn. In time, they would learn what the whole galaxy had learned. Humanity had been holding back for 300 years. Not their weapons. Those had been unveiled in 11 minutes of fire and destruction. They had been holding back something more important. Their hope, their kindness, their stubborn, relentless belief that the universe could be better than it was. Now they were done holding back, and the galaxy would never be the same. Ambassador finished his memoirs that night. His final words were simple, written in the quiet of his study while the stars shone through his window. "They asked why we held back for so long. The answer is simple: we were waiting. Waiting to see if the galaxy would give us a reason to believe in it. When it did not, we gave the galaxy a reason to believe in us. We did not conquer the stars. We reminded them what courage looks like, what compassion looks like, what humanity looks like." He set down his pen and smiled. "And that was only the beginning."